before you go back there and do the projects, you have to diagram them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you what we need to know to be able to put these projects together in real life. And one thing that we have to do if we're going to be an electrician is we have to be able to watch a diagram or look at a diagram and then make it real. So these are very, very simple diagrams. If you can't do these, then you can't do electricity, because the diagrams are going to be more and more complicated as you go. So you really need to understand these as you go. So the first thing we want to do is show you a basic circuit. The basic circuit has a source, and then you're going to run a wire. These lines represent a wire to something that controls the source. So in this case, we're going to put a single pole switch. And now we have another wire that goes to a light. And then from that light, it goes back to the source. So that's the basic circuit. Got to go through different machinations, but it's basically the same thing. So now, this is one type of diagram. What I'm going to show you now is a ladder diagram. And I'm going to do a ladder diagram of this diagram. And here's what it looks like. And a ladder diagram does just what it says it does. It looks like a ladder. You're going to put different components of a circuit in between these two lines, because these two lines represent the source. Here's the source hot. Here's the source neutral. So this would be the source hot, this would be the source neutral. Now, let's kind of go through these wires and name them as we go, because we have to be able to communicate what we're talking about to each other. This wire that comes from the source is called the hot wire. And the hot wire will come from the source to the switch generally. Now, these little dots here represent the screws on the switch. This represents what goes on inside the switch. All you're going to do is hook up your wire to the screws, and then the switch does its thing inside. So from this screw, we're going to take another wire to the light. Now this wire is called a switch leg. And it always is the one that goes from the switch to the light, or whatever it is that's being controlled by the switch. This wire is called the neutral, and it's the grounded side of the circuit. And a couple of things you need to know about the neutral. There's only two colors that are legal for a neutral. One is white, and the other one is gray. Those are the only legal colors for a neutral. The hot, the switch leg, and later on travelers can be any color you want, basically. But these have to be those colors. Okay, so now let's come over here, and we're going to take the hot then to a switch. So we're going to show a connection here that will come over to a switch. Now this is called a single pole. That's a single pole switch. It's going to go to the light, and then it's going to go back to the source, the neutral source. So this is the neutral source, this is the hot source. Here we come to the switch, over to the light. So it's exactly the same components, just in a different type of diagram. Now again, this is going to be the hot, this is going to be the switch leg, and this is going to be the neutral. Okay, now we might want to control this light from two different places. And so in order to do that, we have to have what's called a three-way switch. And a three-way switch has three screws on it. That's why they call it a three-way switch. One screw by itself is a special screw. It's called the common. That's the common screw. And notice that the hot wire connects to the common screw. Now, the other two screws are connected to two more wires, and they go to another three-way switch. Now these are called travelers. Those are travelers. They go between three-way switches. Now the common from this switch then will go to the light, and again, this will be the switch leg. So we have the hot on one side of this three-way switch, and we have the switch leg on the other side. So let's see what it looks like in a ladder diagram. We're going to come from the source to a three-way switch, and remember again, you're just going to connect onto the screws here. These dots represent the screws. What goes on inside the switch is right here, so you don't need to worry about that. Now we're going to take two wires over here. We're going to connect it to the other three-way switch, and then we're going to go to the light and back to the source. So that's a three-way system right here. Okay, now we might want to control the light from more than two places. So there is another switch that we need to know about. It's called a four-way switch. Now a four-way switch must go in between two three-way switches in the circuit. So the first thing we're going to have is a couple of three-way switches here. Well, we're going to have one. Now this is going to go to the four-way switch, and this four-way switch looks like this in a diagram. It looks like four dots with an X in between. And again, these dots represent the screws you're going to connect the wires to, and these lines represent the wires. So we go from a three-way to a four-way, and then back to a three-way. And then we're going to take the switch leg on up to the light. So there is our three-way system. And let's see what that looks like on a ladder diagram. We're going to come to a three-way switch, go to a four-way, go to another three-way, go to the light, and then go to the neutral.
1 and 2, line 1. 3 and 4, line 2, right?
And this is our four-way. So the travelers go now from the three-way to the four-way, and then from the four-way back to the three-way. And we still have the hot wire, we still have the switch leg, we still have the neutral. So this is basically what we're going to be doing in these projects. One more thing that I want to show you is that these switches can all control more than one light. So the way we draw that is we do it like this. This is a parallel configuration, and we don't want to put these lights in series, which would look like this. That's a series connection. We don't want that. So this is the basis for what we do on these projects. So now let's go to project number 1 that I gave you, and let's do that one. And I'll show you how this works out. Project number 1 looks like this. Now let's figure out what this is trying to tell us. First of all, these are single pole switches. We know that because there's no numbers. If it was a three-way switch, it'd have a 3 right there. If it was a four-way switch, it'd have a 4 right there. But since they don't have any numbers, we know that they're single pole switches. Now these black lines indicate the pipe that we're going to use to put the wires in. And if you look back on some of the projects back that they're using, you know that these are in boxes, so we can go through the box without having to connect to the light or the switch. These do represent the lights. And the dotted lines represent or tell you that this switch will control this light, this switch will control this light, this switch will control this light. So let's take a look and see what that looks like in a ladder diagram. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start at the switch and say, well, what kind of a switch is that? And we see that it's a single pole switch, so we just draw a single pole switch. There's nothing to it. If this is a single pole switch, you draw a single pole switch up there. Now, this single pole switch controls light 2. Well, want to do is just do this like this. Just put a 2 right there. We know that that's light 2. We also want to label this switch A, because that is switch A right there. So we've got the switch labeled and the light labeled. Now we'll go to the next switch. It's also a single pole. That's single pole switch B. It's going to control light 3. So I just draw a light, put a 3 in it. And there's that one. Now we've got one more switch, switch C. So it's also a single pole, so we're going to do exactly the same thing. We see here that switch C controls light 1. Now that's the ladder diagram for project number 1. So I looked at this and made this diagram. Now I'm going to make a wiring diagram. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to look at this diagram to make the wiring diagram. Now the only reason I'm going to use this is because I'm going to make the wires go as if they were in these pipes. I'm going to draw them like that. But it's going to look like this. Okay, now we're going to use this drawing, as I said, to make this drawing. So now I've got the switch symbols down here. Here's the light symbols. And I'm going to have a place where I'm going to connect the lights. I'm going to put these little ears out here. And I'm going to use different colors. So for the power, for the hot wire, remember this is the hot, this is the neutral. And we've got to make these wires in this project go where they're going in this project. But this is more like real life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this. This is a symbol for a fuse. So I'm going to put that in there, and we know that that's the hot wire. So we see that the hot wire has to connect to A, connects to B, and connects to C. So let's make it do that right here. We're going to make it connect here to A, to B, and to C. So now we're connected. Now, let's go across this and just go to the neutral, because this is very easy. The neutral is always just connected to the lights. That's it. So let's just go ahead and do that. Now notice I didn't go this way because there's no pipe. The pipe has to go like this. See? So now we have the hot and the neutral. Notice that the hot does not connect to the lights. Now, if I were to close this switch like this, then this wire would become hot, but the name of it is not the hot wire, it's still the switch leg. The wire that goes from the switch to the load. So, what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to use a blue wire for the switch legs. So we're going to see that switch A controls light 2. We have to come from switch A, and we're going to control light 2 with that. Now again, I'm going the direction that the pipe goes, so as if they're in the pipe. Now, switch B controls light 3. And switch C controls light 1. Okay, so now this is the diagram, or the wiring diagram for project number 1. And this is exactly the way I want to see it on your paper. But I want this to be on one sheet of paper like this, so that half of the sheet of paper is on the bottom, the bottom half of this sheet of paper is for one diagram, the top half is for the other diagram. So I can look at them both at the same time. Okay, I'm going to do one more for you. I'm going to do project number 2 because it's got a 3-way system, and then you'll be on your own. And you need to diagram all of these before you start building them back there in the back. Okay. By the way, this arrow means that's where the current comes in, or that's where the feed is. It's normally called the home run in electrical terms. So these two three-ways are going to control that light. This switch will control those two lights, like that. So let's see how that looks in a ladder diagram. So we're going to look at the first switch, and it's a three-way. So all we do is draw a three-way here. We connect it to the power, and that's going to be switch A. Now, switch A works with switch C to control light 2. So we've got to come to switch C from here with the two travelers. And then we go to the light. And this is going to be light 2. And that's all we do for that. Now we've taken care of switches A and C in this one circuit. So we're done with both of those. So now we've got to go to switch B, which is a single pole. Switch B controls lights 1 and 3. So here's the way we're going to draw that. Remember, we want to draw these in parallel right here. This is a parallel configuration. Now let's do the wiring diagram. So we've got two three-ways. And now the pipe goes like this. In fact, I should have put it right here. Okay, so that's the pipe configuration that I want to use on this diagram. But since this isn't for pipes, I'm going to erase this. And we're going to just put wires in. But they're going to go in that direction with the pipe. Okay, so I'm going to come in here with the power, and look, the power connects to switch A and switch B. So let's make that happen. We're going to come over here and connect to switch A. Now again, we can't go right across here to switch B because there's no pipe right there. So what I have to do then is I have to come up here, go past these lights, don't touch them because that indicates a connection. And I'm going to come down here and connect it to switch B. So now I have switch A and B connected to the power, to the hot wire. Notice that switch C is not connected to the hot wire. It's connected to the light through switch A, which is connected to the hot wire. So we've got the hot wire taken care of. Now let's take care of the neutral again, because once again the neutral just goes to one side of all the lights. So that's an easy one to do. We can just bring that in here like this. And that's our neutral. Now, let's do the switch legs. Sorry, the traveler. We've got one set of travelers right here that goes from switch A to switch C. Notice that they don't go anywhere else, just from switch A to switch C. So I'm going to come up here like this, connect it to the travelers at switch C, like that, and we're done with those, because that's all they do. Okay, now I'm going to take the switch legs and take them where they're going to go. From switch C, it's got to go to light 2. So we're going to come over here from switch C, and we're going to go up here to light number 2. And then from switch B, it goes to light 1 and light 3. So from switch B, I've got to come across here to light 3, and I've got to come over here to light 1. Now we're done with that. Now this is exactly the way you're going to wire it in your project. And so now you have a color-coded little picture where every wire goes. That's the way you've got to do it first before you start to build it. That's the way it is in real life. You've got to be able to read the diagram and then make it real in the real world. So what I want you to do is I want you to do all the projects, diagram them all. We're going to help you with project number 5. It's a different one. So for now, skip that, but we'll come back to it. and it's the coast hookup, and I'll show you how to do that later. All right, good luck.